Why don't you pay them? Prioritize paying the civil servants.
Prioritize paying the civil servants. All right, let's move on quickly. Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project has filed a lawsuit against the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited over its alleged failure to account for 22.3 billion naira, $49.7 million, 14.3 million pounds, and 5.2 million euros in oil revenue. This was disclosed in a statement issued by the SERAP Deputy Director, Kolawole Oluwadare, on Sunday. The action follows allegations contained in the 2022 audited report of the Auditor General of the Federation, published on September 9, 2025, which documented multiple instances of unaccounted payments, abandoned contracts, and irregular financial transactions by the National Oil Company. In the suit marked FHC ABJCS 195/2026, filed last Friday at the Federal High Court in Abuja, SERAP is seeking an order of mandamus, compelling the NNPCL to explain how the funds were spent or to recover them. The organization further asked the court to compel the company to disclose the specific financial transactions carried out in respect of the alleged missing or diverted funds, including details of disbursements, the contractors involved, and other individuals who collected the money. According to SERAP, the allegations highlight deep-rooted accountability failures within the NNPCL. Again, accountability. Oil is the backbone of Nigeria. Unfortunately, we rely heavily on oil to fund our budgets. Now, in instances where these amounts of money that is meant to be in the coffers of the government is being diverted, and obviously to few individuals at the detriment of the nation, what does this say about accountability in the NNPCL?
Okay, first of all, this is not the first time we're hearing stories revolving around stolen funds in the NNPC. Of course, you know, so much money in oil. But then again, this is an allegation. Before I would have to comment on this, I would want to wait for the NNPC to respond to SERAP. Okay, SERAP has filed a case in court requesting for the court to issue an order of mandamus, compelling them to come and give us details of the transaction and how the money was disbursed, requesting for proper accountability.
I mean, not to cut you, when this issue came up last year, I remember correctly that the NNPCL board had asked for some time because, you know, there had been some rejig in that organization. So he asked for some time to be given to him to, you know, properly investigate the matter. I mean, from then to now, that should have been, we should have seen some sort of, you know, accountability account of the missing funds.
The truth of the matter is, I've said it before and I've said it, I will say it again, accountability problem. Let me tell you the truth. Everybody, majority of the public office holders, they want to be partakers of the national cake. But like I said, I don't want to comment on the issue until we get response from the NNPC. But it's not the first time, and the allegations placed on NNPCL is not surprising. We're not shocked. It's not the first time. NNPC always experience missing fund, unaccounted funds. Okay, it's either we are hearing the amount of money they are allocating for the rehabilitation and maintenance of a particular refinery, and at the end of the day we are still hearing that the refinery is not in operation till now, and nobody is questioning. And SERAP, who is in the tradition of constantly calling out public institutions to come and account and tell us how monies were being spent, why this particular thing is happening, and all of that. I think it's not out of place. It's still the clarion call for checks and balances. It's still the clarion call for accountability structure to be part of the systems of governance, so that the people can properly say, okay, I mean, the figures you've called, that's like accumulate. You are putting together the state budget for about 4 to 5, 6 states. Okay, if you put Akwa Ibom and River State together and maybe attach two or three other states put together, you are getting the allocation. That's what you're getting as stolen money, unaccounted money for. So let the NNPC come and respond. Let us hear, and of course, you know, it's already a case in court. I would not be able to speak categorically about it. Let us hear what the court will say. Let us hear the responses of the NNPCL. And I don't want to say I'm hopeful. I'm not shocked. I'm not surprised. These are the realities we face. And of course, you know, what will the common man do?
Okay. Now, let's move away from the court's issue and then look at what this means for investor confidence. The NNPCL is more often than not embedded in corruption allegations.
Allegations, yeah.
Yeah. Now, what does this say about investor confidence into our oil sector? If a foreign body wants to invest in that sector, noticing the number or amount of corruption that the oil sector here in Nigeria is embroiled in, do you think it can deter them from fully investing?
Of course. Insecurity
into that sector.
Insecurity is not the only challenge that deters investors from coming into a region. Lack of transparency, lack of accountability. When your books don't carry proper balancing, okay, when your financial statement doesn't tally with expenditure, okay, when your account balance doesn't tally with your recurrent expenditures, okay, when your books don't tally, when the moment your books can't tally, and you know, when it has to do with running businesses, when it has to do with parastatals that bring in money and spend money, your financials is usually very, very important. And when that's not in place, when it's a threat, they would naturally not come. And you know, like I said, the NNPC has been in the news for all the bad reasons. Let's call it speedy speed. They've been in the news for all the bad reasons. They should come out and answer and tell us how the money came, what the money was used for. Are these allegations true? But let me tell you the truth. As usual, they will come out and debunk the storyline.
All right, speaking of which, now let's go back to oversights. One of the things that the federal government would want to oversee the operations of the NNPCL, considering the importance of this body. But it takes the private or civil society to ask relevant questions, to hold these agencies, these bodies accountable for their actions. Meanwhile, the federal government would seem to be, I don't know, okay with what's going on in that part of our economy. Again, what does that say about accountability? The federal government holding such bodies accountable for their actions, and should they oversee them, put measures in place to deter them from, you know, further corruption? Do you think that it will have them sit up and then reduce the number of such actions in the NNPCL?
There have been agitations that the NNPCL should be sold and managed by private organizations and all. And I said last week, the problem is not privatization. Okay, the problem is not privatization. If you recall, our power sector, it was privatized. We were hearing NEPA, and we started hearing PHCN, Power Holding Company of Nigeria. How has the power been held? Okay, for this is in the past 2 years, our national grid has collapsed more than expected in the past 7 years, and it's our harsh reality. So the problem is not who handles what, if it's privatization or still remains public assets. The problem is the federal government you are calling. They are the ones that put the office holders. Appointments come from the federal government. All right. As a matter of fact, this particular thing is in the concurrent exclusive legislative list. Do you understand? So it's the sole responsibility of the federal government to manage the country's assets, the biggest source of our income, our revenue, our biggest revenue generator is our oil, NNPCL. And if all of these things are happening, let us wait and see what the federal government will do. Okay, you recall that some weeks ago, Dangote came and accused Farouk, and Farouk honorably resigned. Okay, but you know, Dangote is a reputable personality. He can't afford to come, not because he's perfect not to talk anyhow, but for him to come out and put out some numbers and facts, they would have undergone some level of verification.
And is that enough? Him resigning, is that enough? Again, what does that say to the actions of these individuals and also the federal government? It seems like it's like when people want to say something or gossip and they use the word alleged, it's alleged just to save the perception, like, oh, if I say alleged or allegedly, that means that I'm not going to be held accountable for what I'm saying. So the fact that he resigned, does that mean that the case is closed, no further investigations into the allegations leveled against him? Again, accountability, and by the federal government. What are we doing? What's the federal government doing to hold these individuals and these organizations accountable for their actions?
Welcome to Nigeria. This is Nigeria, where Nigerians resign because they don't want to answer questions. Okay, you've answered it. You've said it clearly now. He resigned. Does resignation halt interrogation? The answer is no. But why would he be able to resign and not answer questions? He points the so you see, when one man steals, when somebody steals, he's not just stealing for himself. He's stealing for a cartel. Maybe on a separate day we'll talk about cartel. But that's our reality for today.
All right, that's our reality for today. Let's move on quickly before we wrap up. The Ejo Youth Council Worldwide has issued a final 60-day ultimatum to the federal government and its agencies to immediately commence the full-scale remediation and cleanup of all polluted Ejo territories. In a communique issued on Sunday by the Council's President, Dr. Alaye Theophilus, at the end of its national convention, the group warned that at the expiration of this window, they will move to collectively and decisively shut down all oil and gas facilities operating within Ejo territories. The IYC declared that the people would no longer tolerate the disruption of their lands, waters, livelihoods, and future, and also expressed deep frustration with decades of environmental neglect. The council noted that their planned action would follow the precedent of the Ogoniland no remediation, no oil and gas exploration model. In preparation for a potential standoff, the IYC has constituted a mobilization and sensitization committee. The body is mandated to visit all Ejo clans and communities to educate, organize, and prepare the people for a coordinated and total shutdown of oil and gas operations should the federal government fail to act. The group emphasized that regional resources should not be extracted at the expense of Ejo lives. Again, oil, the backbone of Nigerian economy. But unfortunately, it's just a couple of the states that are oil producing states. And these people, these states, these individuals are the ones bearing the brunt of the exploration. Do you think the Ejo youths are actually in the right, demanding accountability, demanding that their environment, the space at which the exploration is being taken place, is being well taken care of, that this environment is being cleaned up before they move on to exploring further? I mean, taking notes from the Ogoni land and seeing how the Ogoni people standing on their feet and saying, look, enough is enough. If you do not do this, you do not do that, we're not going to allow any further exploration. Do you think it's a step in the right direction? And that speaks to the consciousness of the people.
Well, the truth of the matter is, if you're drinking water from my house, and of course you know that land law, the land law or the Land Act in Nigeria provides that if oil is being discovered in your region, the land and everything on the land belongs to the federal government, belongs to the government. That's the reason why the federal government have such powers. But if you go through our Petroleum Act, okay, our PMB law, you would find out that there is a sharing formula. What the communities where the oil is being discovered, a percentage of what goes to them and what goes to the federal government. The big question is, if they are having to protest in this magnitude, it means that the implementation of that agreement or that law has not been followed up. And in my own opinion, if you discover water in my house and there is no water in the entire community, and of course the law says that water belongs to the government, if the agreement is that 5% should come to me, keep to it. Okay, and I know that this agitation is following up the agitation. after the order of the Ogoni. Of course, you know, they've set up a university now in Ogoni, and the old noise have gone down.
Yeah.
And then again, this is electioneering period. Everybody needs a portion of the national cake.
Everybody needs a portion of the national cake. This is where we wrap it up on this episode of Blowout. Thank you so much, Mr. Daniel Washington.
You're welcome.
For your tone of knowledge and always making the time to come to the studio when called upon.
Thank you. Thank you.
We are open for advert placements, bookings, and commercials. You can connect with us on all our ATN socials, Facebook and YouTube, Atlantic Television Network, Instagram and TikTok, Atlantic TV Network 1, and on X, Atlantic TV Net. Watch us live on our website, www.atlanticnetwork.tv. Remember, peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Open conversation comes up shortly. Please don't go away. Thank you for watching. I am Antonia Arceville.